After such a turbulent and rocky start to Black Ops 2 Zombies and its DLC cycle, I can only imagine that players were crossing their fingers that this final map wasn't a dud. After Die Rise somehow made the sour taste in our mouth worse, we were suddenly brought to new peaks with Mob of the Dead. Then Buried turned out to not be so bad. One thing remained mysterious, however. With the Victus story seemingly wrapping up most of the zombie storyline, and Mob of the Dead telling its own segmented story, what was there left to tell in this final map? Will we see the Victus crew again? What happened to Ultimus after the Moon incident? Anyone who realized this and was asking these questions was surely on the edge of their seat in great anticipation for what may come next. The fourth and final DLC pack to be released for Black Ops 2, Apocalypse, would at last be available to the public on August 27th, 2013. And basically, if you didn't have an Xbox, you were f***ed for a whole month. Would this map live up to our expectations? Would any of our still burning questions be answered? Well, little would anyone know, we would be served a map that is largely known to be the greatest, most revolutionary map of all time. Origins. Our first exposure to the map is through a now standard cutscene that plays before each map, but we were in for a ride with this one. The sound of pouring rain fades in, along with a solemn, eerie bell. The very first thing we see are the words, Northern France, 1918. Before we're able to articulate our surprise to this interesting choice of setting, we're greeted with the sight of a colossal zeppelin, ominously floating amongst a storm. Its presence dominates the scene, and the countless biplanes that fly around it. A girl's voice cuts through the atmosphere to explain these intriguing circumstances.
It began long ago, on the battlefields of the Great War. 2 German scientists sought to harness dark and mysterious forces buried for centuries.
We're shown pictures of Richthofen and Maxis. We've heard Richthofen speak of Maxis before, and he played a vital role with the Victus crew, but this is the first time we've ever seen his face. Richthofen looks quite different as well. After all, the last time we saw him, we were in 2025, and this is apparently taking place in 1918. What's going on here? We then see a Group 935 logo plastered on the side of a bunker. The last time we saw anything Group 935 related was back in Kino der Toten in the 60s. Even then, it was just a relic of the project that was originally started before the Second World War. So what are they doing at the start of the century?
They believed their discoveries would assure Germany's ultimate victory.
We're then shown a meteorite, reminiscent of the one we found all the way back on Shinonuma, but this one looks different. Soldiers are seen walking around some construction site. Parts of it look to be made out of the same material that meteorite is. They break through a wall with mysterious glyphs on it, only for them to be rampantly attacked by zombies wearing medieval clothes and armor. Fighting occurs all throughout the site, including soldiers using STG-44s, which weren't invented until the 1940s. It's all a lot to take in at once, but something is clearly different, strange about the events that are unfolding. Next, we see their own soldiers zombified and turned against them. The mysterious girl mentions
the hopes of the Allies,
as we're introduced to our same old characters, only again, they look different. These circumstances are strange enough as it is, even after all we've experienced. However, somehow, a Russian, an American, and a Japanese man all find themselves in France in 1918. For what purpose? They all converge on each other only to meet Richthofen, this time in the flesh. His hands are covered in blood as he puts down a tool he's just used to cut open the skull of a man who has been thoroughly restrained to a table. A man who looks awfully similar to the picture of Maxis we were shown at the start. Our own heads nearly burst with questions, but with the onslaught of zombies quickly approaching, everyone settles on cooperating for the moment, only for that moment to be utterly shifted as we hear a dark, bleak siren and look up through a hole in the roof to see a magnificently gigantic robot. Its hands articulate as it gazes down at us, shining its horrifying, glowing visor on our tiny figures. Seemingly unamused by the sight, it stands back up, lifts its foot, and the next thing we see is black. In the darkness, we hear that girl again.
My name is Samantha. I'm going to tell you how all this really began.
We open our eyes, standing in the room we all thought we would surely die in. The loud squeaking of hydraulics from the massive robot nearly deafen our ears as it strides dozens of feet at a time away from us. Immediately, our group starts to gather their conscience.
What in Lenin's name is going on? I saw a huge steel beast, tall as the spires of Moscow Cathedral. Just what have the Germans been doing in this place?
I am alive! Yeah! It's the brain. There's the brain. Hold on, Maxis. I did not remove your brain without good reason. I completed the operation. Then the robot attacked and I must work quickly. There's so much to do. A vessel for Maxis, the staffs, the opening of the gateway. 9. Maxis must wait. We do not have much time. They will return soon. We need to get the 115 conversion generators operational. They are essential to our survival.
You are Edvard Richtofen?
If powering up these conversion generators means we stand a better chance of survival, then I'm with a German.
There is great evil in this place. Spirits and demons walk this land, possessing the remains of fallen warriors.
After we reached the catacombs at the dig site, my men began to get sick. Within a day, they became like the others, living dead.
We must unite against the common enemy.
An alliance, however fragile, is in all our interests.
Now we must focus on staying alive in this strange German bunker. Fighting through holes ripped straight through the hard steel viewports, we plaster over the exposed rebar with wooden boards. Some of them even try flanking us through the trenches. After finding a lull in the fighting, taking a moment to breathe, we can finally dwell on all of our intrigue. We're playing as our old crew, but we look different, and we're in a time period where most of them wouldn't even have been born yet. Not to mention, what are all these different nationalities doing here at the same time in World War I? Is this a different war than what actually happened? Some technology is obviously different, miles above what we can currently achieve in the modern day. Is this some sort of alternate timeline? Everyone seems to be here on their own country's terms this time around, rather than have been kidnapped and drugged by Richtofen. And what about Maxis? What happened to him? Was he like the others? We were told Richtofen and Maxis were the only 2 German scientists here. Perhaps whatever they were studying or testing has something to do with all of this. Speaking of that, what are we studying here? We already have 1,000-foot-tall robots and mid-century weaponry being displayed all in the 1910s. What could possibly be worth experimenting on? Putting those questions to the side for now, during this downtime we also find out more about what exactly everyone's purpose being here is. Dempsey and Takeo seem to separate themselves from the group for a moment to document their findings to their respective nations.
Field report, confirming arrival at site identified in our intel. Target area appears affected by an unknown contaminant. Enemy personnel have degenerated to their primal instincts, exhibiting irrational and unparalleled savagery. Recommend all Allied units set up exclusion zone until further intel is available. Uncovered further evidence of large-scale mechanization of German forces. Attempts to gather intel being hampered by the infected enemy. Dempsey out.
Our concerns over the German plans appear well-founded. Huge mechanized weapons stalk the battlefield. I must ensure the Emperor learns of these developments. If I am to survive, I must learn how these machines operate. Such technology could allow Germany to enslave the world.
It seems that Dempsey, Takeo, and Nikolai are all Allied operatives, something that Samantha mentioned in the intro cutscene. What's interesting is that it appears every nation's orders were to retrieve Richtofen and extract with him. We can hear Dempsey and Takeo say this in co-op, but weirdly enough, not Nikolai.
You're Dr. Richtofen, right? I'm taking you out of here.
Edward Richtofen, you will come with me.
And as for Samantha, what does she have to do with all of this? How does she know so much? Is she in a similar place to where we've seen her in the past? Is she partly responsible for what's going on? As we look around at our surroundings, it only gets more strange, more intriguing. Everywhere you look, you see science equipment. beakers, measuring cups, all sorts of gear, along with a bunch of radio equipment. As we step over to this bench surrounded by boxes of supplies, all with the Group 935 logo painted on, something catches our eye. Some sort of jar with green liquid containing a brain. This must belong to Maxis. It turns out there really was him on the table. However, where did the body go? Maybe it was covered by the debris when that giant robot tried to kill us. I can't imagine it just got up and left. Who knows? Looking up from the table, we see a map of the entire facility pointing out generator locations. Generators that Richtofen mentioned earlier. In red marker that points to the center of the map, it states Ancient Device of Power. If we look to our right, stepping in puddles of blood and over loose records, we make our way over to another table. This time, there's a diagram of this weird contraption. Labels like surge channeling, crystal housing, and sinking handle can all be seen describing the various functions of this unknown device. Around the larger diagram are smaller, detailed pictures of what seems to be the head, the handle, the tail, and what may be the crystals the diagram is referencing. We also find a note beside it that says, Agartha must be opened. She must be released. The scattered rod pieces must be rebuilt. It's our only chance. What is Agartha? Who is she? The scattered rod pieces, our only chance. These rods must be weapons then, right? Then why were their pieces scattered? Were the Germans even aware that the war may come here? How are we so equipped yet unprepared? There's a radio sitting on the table in front of all these drawings. Maybe this transmission can clear up at least something.
The ancient texts describe an artifact known to them as the amplification rod. It is my firm belief this item is instrumental to harnessing the energy of the elemental stones. Unfortunately, neither the rod nor the stones have been recovered from any of our dig sites. I fear we must push forward regardless. As such, I have drawn up plans to create replica rods based on the descriptions from the main chamber. I will instruct Richtofen to begin fabrication immediately.
It's so strange to hear such a familiar voice. The last time we heard Maxis, he was detailing the end of our existence, and now he's documenting a top-secret science experiment in World War I. Alas, in our hopeful search for answers, we've only found more questions. So these diagrams of this rod are of replicas Richtofen has made based on ancient texts and descriptions from the main chamber. Maxis says that they haven't dug up any of the original parts from the sites. Are these ancient artifacts the only things we're digging for? What about all these strange rocks? Could they be related? With our mind producing a never-ending supply of questions, we explore the rest of this bunker we're stuck in. Stepping up the stairs, we see one of those strange rocks we saw earlier. We turn to find this large, industrial machine, the number 1 painted on the sprawling metal pad it sits on. This must be one of the generators we were told about. Near it, we find another table with a copy of the same map. Around it are detailed drawings of the generator. It seems to be designed to convert 115 energy into power. One of the pictures labels it 115 conversion generator. Below that is a cross-section of a 115 extraction drill. We find a similarly written note next to all the drawings that says, "Keep the generators running at all costs. Do not leave the platforms until they activate. They are coming." The urgency of those words seems to imply to us that our situation is somehow worse than we thought, as these generators are quite obviously not running. But before we find out what whoever wrote that note meant by they, there's another radio sitting on the table.
Researching element 115 continues to yield unforeseen results. The conversion process creates localized energy fields, which appear to function as portals, bringing forth objects of indeterminate origin. It is my hypothesis, however outlandish, that this transfer of matter may actually be occurring through space and time. I believe the answer may lay with the broken rune stones located at the mound. Perhaps channeling sufficient energy from the conversion generators to their location may prove fruitful.
Yet again, we're not reaping any answers here. Maxis mentions the conversion process opening up portals that objects of indeterminate origin come through. What the hell is that supposed to mean? And now he's talking about rune stones and channeling the generator's energy to them? I guess we should keep all that in mind, but in the meantime we should probably get some power running around here. We step up on the metal pad, approach the generator, and turn it on. And at once, countless sounds and sights barrage our senses. As the loud generator begins storing energy, lights form in the ground all around us and scream out as those medieval zombies begin storming the generator. Standing our ground, remembering not to leave the pad, eventually their onslaught stops and we're rewarded with power to the nearby area. Is that what Maxis meant by objects of indeterminate origin? Yeah, he could have worded that better. But what were those medieval knights doing here? In the intro cutscene, we found them behind walls. Have they been here the whole time? Or could they have come here? Where are they even coming from? Where do these portals go? And why do the generators disturb them? In the end, it's just more questions piling on top of each other with no answers yet in sight. Like Richtofen had said at the start, we must move quickly. There's much we need to do and standing in our way of getting out of here. We open the doors to the only two paths we're given, and we set forth out into the trenches. Our very first steps out the door are met with the harsh reality of the elements. We walk past corpses nearly buried, rotten and decayed. They clearly have gunshot wounds, but have they just been sitting here that long, or were they like the others? As we look up from down here in the trenches, we can finally realize the scale of what's going on. The sky is swarming with biplanes and anti-air gunfire. Zeppelins stalk the battlefield from the shadows, occasionally traveling right through the eye of this mysterious, otherworldly storm. All the while, giant robots can be seen walking through all the commotion. It's all very overwhelming, but we must stay in the moment. Up ahead, there's landmark signs. Generator Station 2 in No Man's Land, posted out front of a checkpoint of some sort. Inside are countless crates, mining supplies, fuel, and those glowing rocks again. Continuing down the trenches, we're immediately met with the horrors of what we've gotten ourselves into. Dozens of bodies lay, unrecognizable, piled over each other, completely submerged in mud. The entire rest of the trench, we can't take a step without touching one. At once we make it to Generator 2 and a tank station. Glancing upwards even a mere couple feet, we see a crowd of soldiers silently watching us, all impaled on these giant stakes. How could they have possibly ended up there? What are we truly dealing with in this hellscape? Inside the tank station, the floor is flooded. The bunker that once was a safer place is now completely destroyed. The rocks and supplies we've become familiar with by now also litter the space. What's even weirder though, foraging around, we'll find a vinyl disc. What the hell is this doing here? It's a miracle it hasn't been damaged. Picking it up, Richtofen says,
Before his demise, Maxis grew obsessed with these recordings.
Moving on from that and out of the bunker's back door, we're no longer confined to the trenches, but without those claustrophobic walkways, it makes you feel trapped up here. The cold, debilitating mud clings to your boots, making it easy for those things to catch up. Looking across the way, one of the giant robots lays dormant and lifeless. Sparks emit from the joints in its fingers. Fires can be seen emanating from multiple compartments. Did this thing just fall over, or did something take it out? Who pilots these things anyway? Did they get sick like the others? It makes you think, how well is Germany doing in this war? Especially if they can make machines like this, what else can they make? It also puts into perspective, if these colossal machines can somehow die, all the more likely we can too. Infinitely as easily. Making our way back to Generator 2, we must proceed with one of our objectives, that being restoring power. After that, moving through the trenches, we're brought to the closed door of the workshop. If we continue down the other way, we'll find what looks like another mass grave in progress. Just like what we've seen before, countless bodies are buried in the mud. One lays in a wheelbarrow, a jerry can sat next to it, a fire already burning behind them. Departing this horrific sight, we go back to the laboratory and proceed through the other door. It looks like this side saw a lot more fighting. Multiple zombies are seen with pickaxes lodged in their skulls. In the supply depot, we see a singular man stabbed in the back by 3 large poles. It makes you wonder what all this combat looked like. Next to the depot is a small shack entrance. with the sign "Fire" before a tunnel that's been bored through the earth. Following this tunnel, we see more of those same intricate carvings, captivating waving lines and segmented circles etched into stone. Reaching the bottom, we're met with a perplexing sight of science equipment contrasted by more of this ancient architecture. On the left, some sort of seal has been broken to reveal dozens, possibly hundreds of ancient human remains. The science equipment consists of lamps, various machines, tiny generators, and arrays of speakers pointed towards this altar-like centerpiece. Next to it sits a sign that ominously says, "The Crazy Place," as it points directly at the center of where all this science equipment is facing. Things just keep getting weirder and weirder, but there's nothing we can do here. It just makes you feel uneasy anyways, standing here, looking at all of this. Moving on, just outside the depot's yet another endless sea of bodies. Eventually we'll make our way to Generator 3, and with Generators 2 and 3 now turned on, we open the doors to the workshop. Here we see the signs of what the living conditions were like. Shirts are hung on bunks, gear and supplies are packed densely around the place. Boxes, rocks, boots, and helmets are all moved to clear the walkways. Rations are scattered on tables, and there's a couple telescopes standing at the lookouts. Scavenging this place for anything useful, we come across a workbench. Next to it lay another radio beneath a dead soldier still in his bunk.
It is by chance of fate alone that we unlocked the seal to the main chamber. Repeated efforts to use brute force proved ineffective and left the men exhausted and frustrated. In an effort to alleviate the tension, one of the soldiers brought a gramophone to the chamber, along with a recording by a group of performers known as La Source Noire. To our astonishment, as we listened to the first few bars of music, the seal itself began to open. I cannot help but wonder if other such recordings may similarly reveal other areas of the catacombs.
Listening to this audio log and hearing references to things we've heard before, we get this sense of foreboding foreshadowing. The seal to the main chamber, records played on a gramophone. Richtofen said Maxis became obsessed with these recordings. Down in that tunnel we found near the lab, there were speakers pointed towards one of the ancient structures. Whatever civilization is responsible for these things we've been finding seems very oddly scientifically advanced. Could they have harnessed some sort of acoustic power? What is behind the main chamber? Obviously this recording is from the past, but how far did we end up getting? Where are we now? Surely we'll eventually find some answers if we just keep going, and with nowhere else to go, we must open the door and venture out into no man's land. Running up this ramp of wooden planks, we arrive at this vast, open space. Anti-tank and anti-personnel obstacles are littered everywhere. Numerous bodies are seen again, impaled on the stakes holding them down. Carriages are on fire, tanks crashed and burning, bodies caught in the barbed wire. Once again, an overwhelming sight, but there's much to do. And as if our frustrations have been heard, a voice somehow cries out from the silence and all of the chaos.
Can you hear me? Please, you have to help me. I'm trapped here. I just want to go home. You have to help me. Please. There is a way to open the gateway. My father was so close. He said, you have to follow the steps.
It's Samantha. How is she speaking to us through our minds? Is it the 115 or is it something else? It seems our objective has been elevated. Now restoring power and retrieving the rods have become intertwined with Samantha and this Agartha. Things seem to be getting even more complicated. At least she seems to corroborate some of the little information we've been given. We have made copies of the rods or the staffs, but we have to find the parts first and then figure out how to make them. And somehow that's a part of opening a gateway to Agartha and getting Samantha out. It still doesn't answer what she has to do with all of this. How did she end up trapped? Did she touch the MPD? Is she in control of the zombies? The regular zombies we find do have yellow eyes. However, the knights we found have blue eyes. What does that mean? Continuing through no man's land with debris blocking our entry to the excavation site, we make our way over to the 4th generator. Once we're there, we find another one of those tunnels. This time it seems to be continued through the basement of this wreckage. Around us are the remains of a couple houses, maybe a small village, previously quartered and fortified for combat before being utterly destroyed. Walking down the steps, we pass a sign that says, "Wind." This tunnel's just like the other, full of this ancient carved stone. Here we can see one of the seals still intact, but at the bottom, it's the same site, the same kind of science equipment pointed at the center, this blocked doorway of some kind, another sign claiming it's the crazy place. Perhaps we'll have to make use of these later, but for now we have to power on the generator. Here we can get another close glimpse at those knights. They wear these gilded robes and have crowns on their heads. They seem to be imbued with electricity and bear this sigil on their clothes that looks remarkably close to the Black Sun symbol, a Nazi symbol from the 1930s. What is it doing on these crusaders? Is this really some alternate universe where Germany has had this long-running ideology for centuries? It certainly paints a dark and ominous light on what's going on here and what we have to do with it. Do we even want to know? We hike our way to the opposite side of the site where we find our 5th generator. More ruins of a house, the wreckage of a tank, downed biplanes in the distance, and another tunnel. This is the 3rd we've found. This one says lightning. Inside, it's the same thing. Ancient structures, Group 935 science equipment, the crazy place, nothing we haven't seen before. It's the standard routine. Check it out, turn on the generator. Walking back towards the center behind the excavation site is a cemetery before a church. A sign before the walkway indicates that this is where the 6th generator is. We walk through the mud of one of the robot's footprints. It moves downwards and leads us to below the church. There sits a tank. What used to be the church's basement is now an open throughway. It's a miracle that this church hasn't collapsed. From underneath, we see giant holes in the floor and foundation, and now lies this modified tank, the last working machine that isn't against us or solely operated by an invisible force like with the giant robots. Walking up the basement stairs and into the church, we see that practically half of the church is missing. Pews are turned over and lit on fire, the floor entirely made up of rubble. Where a priest would stand now emanates a purple glow. Blocked by pews and barbed wire, behind we see this claw-shaped apparatus floating in the air. It's just out of reach. Is this one of the staff parts? No matter. From standing inside the church, we can see the 6th generator. Out onto a robot footprint, we spot another tunnel. This one doesn't have a sign at all, but all the same things at the bottom. That's strange. After powering up yet another generator, we make our way back to the excavation site to finally check it out. Walking through the cemetery, this harsh, spitting siren blares across the entire complex. From the sky, a small mechanized suit descends using rocket thrusters. Its armor and equipment make these alien sounds as it drops violently on the ground and gazes up to stare at us. Through the glass window of its helmet, a zombie's glowing, glazed-over eyes find us in its vision. Letting out an angry roar, it begins running towards us. Through its attacks, it becomes evident that this machine is outfitted with a flamethrower and a rocket-powered claw that it shoots out of its arm in attempts to catch us, and magically retracts. Such a sophisticated piece of technology to be roaming the trenches of a battle during the Great War. Maybe that claw it's able to retrieve uses some sort of anti-gravity technology. On Derice, we saw that fly trap, remnants of the supposed existence of Die Glock. I can only imagine the experiments that were going on then, but now, in this world, the Germans seem to have garnered a head start on developing some of this technology. Perhaps this mechanized suit was used to aid in the mining operations here, or maybe offer protection. Looking back, the soldiers patrolling this site were armed to the teeth. Maybe they were anticipating a fight. Maybe they knew more than we thought they did. From emptying every last bullet into its mask, it finally falls, and with it, the zombie inside. It seems to have been carrying some part, this time glowing red. Once again, perhaps this is one of the lost replica pieces, but what is it doing in the hands of this machine? Walking away from this encounter, looking back at the church, from a distance the fires and disarray inside almost seem to be hidden by the facade that faces us. It almost looks as if it's lit by candlelight through the windows. At once, after exploring the whole site, we arrive at our last unknown location, the excavation site. Clearing the debris, on top stands one of those mysterious ancient structures that we saw in the beginning. Oddly enough, it lays directly under this great storm that seems to stubbornly persist, producing snow and rain. Maybe remnants of this ancient technology are what keeps it here. 8 pillars stand atop this mound, all made out of that same mysterious rock, all in various states of destruction. Scientists have wrapped copper wire around each pillar and installed electrical probes. An ominous ring of metal magically floats above the air in the center of all the pillars, the copper wire wrapped around it as well. Is this more anti-gravity magic? Underneath it sits this now completed ancient machine. This is the Pack-a-Punch. It doesn't look at all like how we've seen it before. The Pack-a-Punch machine looks like it was crafted out of human-made parts by someone. This one does not. It almost looks alien in nature. It makes you wonder if we really are in some alternate dimension. We follow some scaffolding leading down into the structure. Here we find another collection of equipment, and oddly enough, a gramophone tipped on its side. Thinking back to what Richtofen and Maxis said about the records, we prop it up on the table. Nearby we find this white labeled disc and set it upon the gramophone. Through the old tunes squawking out of the horn, the ground begins to shake. Dust and debris fall from the ceiling as the center of the floor sequentially drops in this satisfying manner, morphing into a spiral staircase. This must be the main chamber Max has told us about. It leaves us in awe as we begin descending the steps. Below, we're perplexed by so many fascinating things. Countless more examples of those ancient seals are embedded in the walls. Was this place a ceremonial graveyard of some kind? The scientists seem to have made it this far, as we can see scaffolding all around the place. Below these 4 floating rings that look to be made out of stone. There's 4 different gemstones embedded in each of the rings. There's also 4 switches found around the place, and when you flip them, they rotate the rings. And below these rings are 4 tall statues and 4 podiums of some kind that look like they're made out of metal, oddly like they don't belong here. And as for the statues standing behind these podiums, we're not prepared for what we find out. Our group takes a closer look and glances up to stare at themselves, cloaked in the same robes we've seen the knights dressed in. It's already strange that we've all converged here, in France, in World War I, but now we all see ourselves as statues in this ancient structure. This can't be a coincidence. Maybe all the teleporter and time travel experiments Richtofen took part in are responsible for the even stranger situation we find ourselves in. One thing's for sure, standing in the ominous presence of these giant statues makes you feel like there's something we're meant to do. It's nerve-wracking. It's anxiety-inducing. The blank, stoic stare of what certainly looks like ourselves makes us feel this pressure all of a sudden, like something's counting on us. 4 statues, 4 podiums, 4 rings, 4 tunnels, the 4 of us, 4 ancient rods. What mysterious force has put us here? The Germans were sure looking to get an edge in the war by studying this place, employing mysterious new technologies from their discoveries. If you think about it, it's awfully similar to how they acted in the Second World War and the Group 935 then. And just as we come to this revelation, Samantha reminds us.
I'm trying to remember. The staffs of the ancients were lost. But Father made copies. You can find them. You can get me out. You can open the gateway to Agartha. Father said the chambers were doorways, opened by the songs of the ancients. Step 1. Secure the keys.
Again, we hear the concept of songs or records opening up doors for us. I mean, we saw with our own eyes how the main chamber opened, and she mentioned more than one. The staffs must have been weapons used by harnessing the elements and created by whatever ancient civilization built this place. According to Samantha, in order to get to Agartha in the first place, we need all 4 of them. Now, with supplying power to the entire site and finding out what was underneath this mound, we set out on our next objective, finding the replica staff pieces, or as Samantha put it, secure the keys. Our characters scour the entire site, splitting up, fighting off their undead assailants. We find 3 more music discs and a plethora of parts. From jumping into places out of sight by using the tank, to digging parts out of the ground, to then finding one in a downed plane, we discover the majority of the parts. It's when it comes to the giant robots where it gets interesting. 3 separate robots roam the dig site in patterns. Sometimes they all come at once, other times it's just one. From looking at them during their walk cycle, when they lift their feet up, occasionally you'll see a small yellow light. Shooting at it appears to depressurize something. Compressed gas hisses and a set of blast doors open, revealing an even brighter light, signifying some point of entry. As dangerous as it seems, when the robot steps over you with this foot, it appears to be an entry plug of some kind that transports you directly to the cockpit, the head of the robot. In each of the cockpits you'll find a staff part, along with an entirely dead crew. The name of the robot is inscribed above the control panels. It's so fascinating to see what it looks like up here. It appears there was a navigator that used this map, soldiers who operated the various controls, and then a pilot and probably a co-pilot. How did they all die up here? How is this thing still running without them? Are there other compartments where people work in this thing? I don't understand how it hasn't ended up like the one we see next to the tank station. However, that's not all. In each of the robot heads we find another radio. In the robot named Thor that roams over the laboratory, this is the transmission we hear.
When 115 is channeled towards the ancient stones, an energy field appears to drag unknown objects into our reality. Is it possible that element 115 is disrupting the space-time continuum itself? How else could an ancient box, created eons ago, bring forth weapons from different eras, perhaps including even our own future? Further study is needed to understand these powerful and unpredictable forces.
Intriguingly, we hear Max's detail more of what this ancient technology is capable of. He even talks about the mystery box. It sounds like through experiments using 115 and these ancient stones, or perhaps maybe even the work of the generators, the mystery box being one of these unknown objects dragged into our reality was found. Interesting enough, he said it was created eons ago. I'm wondering if that's hyperbole, or if that's his genuine estimate. An eon is at least several hundreds of millions of years. It seems like even they found out what kind of weapons it produced. I wonder where they put them. It certainly explains the futuristic weaponry we can get from it. Maybe that's how they got all those STGs decades in advance. Yet Maxis is unsure they even come from the future. He may think the box can only produce weapons that have come from the past. After all, we didn't know of this ancient civilization, so what else could there be? We, the player, know that they come from the future, but think about it from his perspective. Next, acquiring another staff part in the robot named Odin that roams over the mound, we find another transmission.
When I awoke this morning, I learned of mysterious events that took place during the night. Men working on the installation of the generators reported seeing ancient figures emerging from the mound. I would doubt their story, but for the fact that by morning, many of the men were either dead or missing.
In this transmission, Maxis details events that could be a story of their own. I assume that maybe when they were installing these generators around the dig site that it was more peaceful, that the place didn't look like how it does right now. I can imagine such a dark turn of events like that. Max is sleeping in his house off-site, while the soldiers presumably find those Templar knights inside the mound, only for when the morning comes, the knights are nowhere to be seen, and the only people who could have spoken about them firsthand are dead or missing. This must mean that what we saw happen in the intro cutscene wasn't the first of its kind. That's probably the reason why the soldiers are armed so well. Perhaps there weren't as many soldiers here in the first place, but now they were preparing to defend themselves against their unknown attackers. I find that so fascinating. That truly could be a fleshed out story of its own, but we only get this single, digestible glimpse of it through this radio broadcast. Finally, making our way into the robot that walks past the church, Freya, we find one of our last replica parts and listen to our last radio transmission.
The child's voice calls to me more frequently than ever. At first, she spoke only of her imprisonment in a mythical realm known as Agartha. Now she claims to be my daughter, even though I know no such child exists. I fear my sanity may be slipping away from me.
And this is when we hear a bombshell. Samantha is not Maxis's daughter, not in whatever timeline we're in. He doesn't even know who she is or her name. What does this even mean? Surely this was before Maxis went crazy, right? Or maybe this was just on the cusp of his insanity. He says he feels like he's starting to lose his mind. Maybe this is where it all started. And if Samantha isn't his daughter, then how she ended up trapped in Agartha is even more perplexing. Unless the 115 or ancient technology is affecting Maxis's brain to the point of memory loss, I think he's telling the truth. Now remembering the way she calls out for help gives it a very unsettling feeling, like this is a trap of some sort, meant to appeal to a man's emotions. It makes following through with this plan seem daunting. And with all the staff parts acquired, we're just missing one thing: the crystals. Samantha mentioned multiple chambers to be opened by the ancient songs. We opened the main chamber in the mound, and thinking back to those mysterious tunnels, they had much of the same equipment down there. We hauled a gramophone all the way back to the laboratories to visit the first tunnel we discovered, the fire tunnel. Now we know these names refer to the elements. Placing the gramophone down on the table next to the amplification equipment, we lay the red labeled disc on it. The tune starts to blare as the stones on the ground begin to lift into the air and be pushed by an unseen force, slowly being built in the shape of a doorway before our very eyes. The very last stone is placed, and with an instant, bright flash of light, the doorway is complete, and a mysterious red wormhole of some kind resides within the center of it. Not knowing what's on the other side, other than it's a crazy place, we step through. With another flash of light departing the wormhole, we're brought to this grand, dark cave, illuminated by the strange rocks we've been seeing everywhere. Hexagonal columns strut down from the roof, creating this beautiful ceiling where arrays of walls made out of rock violently drop to the ground and retract back up into the ceiling. Atop the center of the room is just this black pit. It begs the question, where is this place? Is this a different dimension? Is this place still on Earth? The zombies that drop down from the walls are the same knights we've become familiar with, but it seems they swarm exclusively here, and with such great numbers in this place, it makes you wonder how they got here, and if they're related to this ancient civilization. This arena is divided into 4 quadrants, mirroring the staff elements. There's fire, wind, lightning, and the last seems to be water or ice, all corresponding to the tunnels and music discs we found. The portal that's connected to the ice element must be the one paired with that unnamed tunnel below the church. Walking to the center of this great big room are 4 podiums, each bearing a unique symbol. When we approach them, a pillar lifts up to reveal a crystal laying in a bed of its own material. Such interesting design language and symbolism really hints at a greater and grander world. It really piques your interest as to who and what this civilization really was, and what became of their purpose. It is here where we have finally collected our last parts to the staff replicas. Meeting below the mound, before our own statues, we at last craft the rods. We fought long and hard to get here, and as if to diminish our progress, Samantha chimes in again.
There's more to do. Father said the staffs weren't powerful enough. He said the clues were in the writings of the ancients. There were riddles hidden within the chambers. For so long he tried and tried to solve them, but he couldn't. He didn't know what to do. Every journey begins with a single step. This is step 1. Step 2. Ascend from darkness.
If that is step 1, how hard are the rest of the steps going to be? How many steps are there? Hearing Samantha talk more about her father feels unnerving. It makes us second guess if Maxis meant what he said, if he was crazy when he said it or not. Or maybe that's exactly what Samantha wants us to think. And what does ascend from darkness mean? Through a long process of deciphering the ancient meaning behind symbols found in the crazy place and around the site, with some hints from Samantha, we're able to complete a series of intricate steps respective to each rod to imbue them with greater power.
The ancients found the way to bridge the void. Follow in their footsteps. Every step you take brings you closer to freeing me. Within the giant, the staffs will reveal the ancient writings.
Bridge the void? What does that mean? With more hints, we make our way back in the robots and place our staffs within. Near the church and in the mound, we find parts to something Richtofen knows about. Using Maxis's brain we collected at the start of this whole thing, we're able to make a drone that hovers in the air. Upon firing it up for the first time, Maxis speaks to us, in the present. Perhaps he can help us on this journey.
Ah, at last, the darkness is at an end. I live again. I knew my friend would not fail me.
Here! I am here, my friend. I was able to preserve your mind before you succumbed to the sickness.
Something is wrong. I can no longer touch, no longer feel. What have you done, Richtofen?
We can put everything right, Maxis. You must understand that I had no other choice. So much of our work has been lost in battle.
He speaks to us, seemingly fully conscious and aware. Was this the plan all along? Why was Maxis dissected in the first place? Did he become a zombie? Because Richtofen almost sounds unsure. Or had he completely lost his mind at that point, crazed beyond belief due to this mysterious girl in his mind telling him she's his daughter, and this incessant, growing obsession with the ancients in their world? Whatever it may have been, it seems the only way through this is forward. Our crew manages to acquire a set of these beacons. Next to Generator 5, we find a seal on the surface of the ground. We throw one of the beacons on top of it, while a red button inside one of the giant's heads is pressed.
Fire control link activated.
Mortars then shoot up and out the back of the robot, targeting the beacon, and land atop the seal, blowing a hole straight through it. We send Maxis in there to scope it out, only to find a small army of those mechanized zombies.
Souls must be released from the pit, but it was said no mortal could enter. Step 4. Unleash the horde.
Out from this hole we've created jump several of those suits. Were they there all along? Whatever it was down there, we're now clearly occupied with defeating them all.
Find the spirit of the sky. Only on Earth can he be defeated. Step 5. You are the winged beast.
After taking out every last one of the Panzer Soldats, we must take down a plane and dispose of its zombified pilot in order to retrieve Maxis.
The Guardians of the Scroll must feel your might. Step 6. Wield a fist of iron.
We meet inside the mound once again and find that some of the Templar knights are now ensnared with this white, ghostly mist. After defeating countless knights, we discover an ancient tablet of text.
We are so close. Please, keep going. Release the souls of the ancients. Step 7. Raise hell.
After all that we've done, after zipping through these last steps, doing what Maxis could not, retrieve the replica staff parts and finally put them together. After following Samantha's directions, it's all culminating to this point. This point in this journey that has seemed to fall into our hands. Yet there's been these signs all along that this is what we were meant to do. All of this was planned to be set in motion, maybe like it's already happened before. Releasing the souls of the ancients, we place our replicas in their ancient pedestals, and the knights begin to swarm us in massive waves, each one emitting a wispy cloud upon death, a soul that soars through the air and disappears into the sky above, now a cloud circling atop this cave. Eventually, after dispatching countless hordes of these olden crusaders, the souls stop. The sky opens up to this heavenly light. Our crew stands in the center, looking up in awe. They release Maxis up into the air, almost as if he's an offering. He ascends slowly to the top, disappearing into the light. That same light starts to completely obscure our vision. In these moments where we see nothing but white, we question, is this it? Is this Agartha? What are we meant to do now? The white persists, as Samantha's voice speaks out, as if she's right next to us, no longer in our heads.
As the gates to Agartha opened, the 4 heroes were rewarded with riches beyond imagination.
The white fades away to reveal the blue iris of her eyes and sets whatever she's holding down, us, a camera.
From that day forward, they knew that Samantha would keep them safe. Forever.
Through this view, we see her and a young boy her age play with these figurines. Figurines we've seen before.
You're getting everything wrong. I told you before their eyes should be blue.
It's my turn, Eddie. I can do whatever I want.
But you don't even know how to play properly. Girls don't know enough about zombies.
What's the choice of it, children? Make sure the windows are locked before you come down to the basement.
We'd better do what your dad says. I didn't even get my turn.
Tomorrow, Eddie, you get to make the rules. I promise. Come on, Fluffy.
I wish the heroes in our stories were real, Sam.
I know what you mean. But we will make everything okay. My dad says he has a plan.
It's all so strange. Was all that has happened the product of a girl's conscience? A game? In the background, we see so many things we've seen before, all the way from the start. Parts of every experience our crew has been through. So many questions, so much intrigue. We end like we had started, all the way back in that dark bunker and knocked, with questions and interest. We're left alone to gather the answers. And just like that, it's all over. Truly, there aren't enough words to describe what a lasting impression, a difference this map made, and the legacy it's left, not only in gameplay evolution, but in story. There's also some things I didn't mention in this video. Gameplay elements such as zombie blood, the challenge box, and I didn't explicitly mention the Thunder Fists, although those were an integral part to the Easter egg quest. There was one horror aspect that I also didn't talk about that you may not even have heard before. There are some pretty wicked quotes you can hear while in Zombie Blood that definitely freaked me out a little.
The Steel Warrior must be destroyed. Unhallowed ground. The undead ancients must be repelled. The giants hold many secrets.
The gameplay of this map alone is so captivating that I never really dove deep into the story of it. I mean, everyone's seen the outro cutscene, but in making this video, I've discovered all these fascinating, intricate details that make the world exponentially richer. The depth formed out of the passion for this map is so clear to see once you look for it. Think about it. It only gets richer when you brainstorm on your own, come to your own conclusions, try to answer the questions that you have about the world and story for yourself. It really does remind me of Indiana Jones sometimes, just the concept of discovering all of these ancient relics and structures left behind. The theories you could craft are endless about who the ancients are, what the ending cutscene meant. Obviously, we know all of that now. This game is over a decade old, and Black Ops 3 spelled out a lot of it for us, even if it did retcon most of it. Don't get me wrong, Black Ops 3 is awesome, but there's something to be said about the mystery. The ancients mentioned all over Origins are so mysterious, and while the Keepers are cool, the vagueness of your mind when you try to think up what they look like, who they are, is so fascinating. I almost wish I could go back before it was all revealed so that I could theory craft myself. One could come to the conclusion that maybe Maxis knew more than he was letting on. Maybe he became crazy for more reasons than we originally thought. Maybe what led to his death was him finding a way into Agartha himself. Perhaps those Templar zombies with the blue eyes were controlled by him, or by his actions. All the while, Samantha controls the rest, while she's right next to him in Agartha. Even back then, you could suspect the ancients to be aliens of some kind. The materials the ancient architecture is made out of, and also the crazy place, seems to be the same material that the meteorite in the intro is made out of. Which, to be clear, is a retcon of the original meteorite on Shinonuma. I don't believe it was intended to indicate a different element or resource, just a reimagining of what it would look like. But one could see that and think, that meteorite could be extraterrestrial, so perhaps whoever built those spires on the mound, this ancient civilization, could be too. Maybe the Knights Templar discovered these ancients, and the ancients took over their bodies, transferring souls. Or perhaps the ancients died out, and when the Knights Templar discovered their artifacts, their souls were left behind to corrupt them. That's why when we released the souls of the ancients, we're killing Templar Knights. All I'm saying is that there was a lot you could wonder about and speculate on all by yourself, without having the answers explicitly forced upon you before you could do anything ever so little as to try and piece together an answer by yourself. Something that the later games definitely have a problem with. The story of this map is so lush, and I only found that out after I went looking for it, especially that one radio talking about the installation of the generators. To me, that's peak storytelling, because listening to that I can visualize in my head a scene of the dig site at night. Lights lit up all around the place so the men could see what they were doing. Light that comes out the top of the mound and bleeds into that dark blue night sky. Only for inside, the yellow fluorescent light of bulbs, illuminating whatever mysterious and horrifying sight those men saw by the zombified Templar Knights ripping apart their fellow man. I find that so interesting. That itself shows the level of care they had for the story. It also shows the level of expertise they had crafting it. The ordinary player might not be interested in the story, yet for someone who is, and searches for it, they find diamonds like this. The ordinary player is satisfied with the spectacle of a setting and the badassery of the characters and their quotes, and the people who are interested in learning about the story are left in awe upon their discoveries. That is truly commendable. And I think that even in how much admiration and praise this map has already been drowned in, for those factors alone, I think it's still worthy of more. I only wish they continued this way of storytelling past Black Ops 3 and 4. And speaking of the radios, the one where Maxis describes picking up weapons from the box that aren't from the era of the setting, it's a step that they deliberately took in such great care for the story that you don't see very much nowadays, nor see people appreciate. A lot of people didn't realize when I talked about the weapons we use in my transit video that back in these games, the weaponry made sense for the most part. With World at War, the rest of the game took place in World War II, and so did the zombies, so the weapons made sense. In Black Ops 1, the rest of the game took place in the 60s to early 80s. So while much of the weapons could be considered technically, historically anachronistic for maps like Kino, 5, and Ascension that were set in the 60s, and then out of date for maps like Shangri-La and Call of the Dead, which took place in 2011, and especially Moon in 2025, it still did manage to fit the aesthetic. However, in Black Ops 2, and we'll come to find out Black Ops 3, they were tackling a more near future, and then full-blown futuristic setting with the rest of the game. Obviously, the teams working on zombies already had their hands full and couldn't make an entire set of weapons just to fit the setting. It wouldn't be feasible nor worth it. However, in Black Ops 2, the zombies was also set in the near future, for the most part, barring maps like Mob of the Dead and Origins. Yet still, the mode had exclusive weapons that fit the time frame for those maps. Mob of the Dead introducing the Tommy gun. Even in Buried, we got an old single-action revolver, and then Origins with the C96 and MG08. The STG-44 was one of those technically anachronistic guns, but it speaks volumes for them to have a plausible way to explain it, something that most people don't notice, let alone focus on. Yet they had a whole radio explaining it, how it works in this World War I setting with this ancient, time-warping technology. I find that so fascinating that they had the passion and forethought, the care for their story to do that. Unfortunately, starting in Black Ops 3, they generically wrote it off as Dr. Monty's intervention as to why we see so many futuristic guns. We would see some exclusive guns again, some of which are still technically anachronistic for the time frame, like the Sten gun on Shadows of Evil, but it's still a nice touch. Even Black Ops 4 had some zombies exclusive weapons. However, they weren't used to make any one map unique, or storyline for that matter. And past that is when they really just stopped giving a shit. My point is, the reason why this map is so revered is not some coincidence. It did not just fall into place like that. It took care, passion, creativity, and above all, integrity. Integrity to not just do anything. Everything was built to fit together, to have a purpose. Things weren't contrived or thrown in just because. The fan service wasn't lazy or shallow. Things weren't changed just for the sake of change. Legacies weren't tarnished as a result of making stupid decisions. It was crafted with care. Care for the story, care for the gameplay, and care for the established legacy of the mode that started all the way back in that bunker. And as you've probably heard before if you've watched any of my other videos, sadly, you don't see that anymore. It's unfortunate, and a generation-defining map like this only amplifies that. And although it's rather sour to realize that we don't have it as good off anymore, we can use that to appreciate what we had in the past even more, and perhaps to hope and forge a similar future. Or cope, whatever. Maybe we'll experience a new zombies map like that again. Someday, somehow. You never know. And in the meantime, I, as well as countless of others, of which many of you are watching this, will continue to appreciate these old maps and games by talking about them and still playing them to this day. And of those maps in which we still play, Origins still manages to stick out.